David Reddig, CEO of Synoptis, here with episode 2 of Forward Leadership Myths and How You Can Overcome Them. Today we'll be talking about myth number 2, leadership training doesn't work. Before I get into it, a little bit about my company, Synoptis. We focus on delivering IT operational excellence. We answer the 3 concerns of C-level folks, that their IT department's too expensive, that their IT department's too inflexible, their IT department's too slow. We provide the services that are required to help through leadership coaching and development, digital transformation, strategic planning, change management for Fortune 500 companies, and Salesforce architecture and development. So a little background. So first off, companies want more leaders. Hiring and developing leaders is the #1 concern of companies, and this was reported by SHRM in 2019, that HR folks recognize that in order to meet operational goals, in order for the company to continue to grow, they need to hire leaders, and there's insufficient leaders in the leadership pipeline. And most organizations have a defined budget for leadership development. They recognize that this is so important that they've actually set aside a line item in their organization saying, hey, we've got money, we need to develop more leaders. This is a strategic goal of organizations. But not only do they just want leaders, they don't want to put a body in a seat, they want more good leaders. Companies know that good leaders reduce turnover, which is expensive, increase organizational profitability. If you look at organizations with good leaders, they tend to be more bottom line profitable than companies without good leaders. Companies with good leaders have improved customer satisfaction. Their customers are happier with the company. They have better customer retention. They have higher project success. And with companies dumping tons of money into projects to advance the strategies of the organization, ensuring project success or helping project success is critically important, and they know that good leaders are part of that. And they have higher employee engagement, and we know that employee engagement increases productivity, which increases profitability, and so good leaders lead to more employee engagement, which results in all these positive things. We also know that good leaders want more training. The #1 request for leaders and aspiring leaders is more leadership training. Companies want it, and leaders want it. Aspiring leaders say the #1 reason they'll stay with an organization, your high performance employees, the #1 reason they'll stay with an organization is if they feel like there's a defined career ladder, that there's opportunities for them to grow as a leader, and that they see that the company's committed to their advancement through the organization. However, we also know that companies struggle to develop good leaders. 4 out of 5 companies admit that they don't have an effective way to train leaders. They either have a program and it isn't working the way they want it to work, or they don't have any program at all. And so organizations expect that leaders will figure it out. They say, hey, if a leader wants training, they'll know what training they need. They'll know what training's best for them, and they'll know how to get it. Unfortunately, this results in leaders facing a challenge. They're afraid to ask. Maybe they're not aware that there's a budget available to train, or they feel like if they ask for leadership training, it's going to be seen as a weakness rather than someone who's desiring to get ahead. They're thinking, if I admit that I need training, maybe the organization will think I'm not the right guy or gal for the job. The other challenge leaders face is that there's just too many options. Last year, there were nearly 1,300 new books with leadership in the title. 1,300 books, that's 4 every day, or about 4 every day. You can't possibly, and that's just last year. You can't possibly have a leader dig through 1,300 new books to find the 4 or 5 that are actually good. There's just too many options, and so leaders feel overwhelmed with, what do I choose from? In addition to, they have a job to do. They're busy, and so sorting through this is really tough. So in addition to too many options, of those 1,300 books, most of them are just opinions. Somebody who thought they had a good idea, it really wasn't based in any research, it really wasn't based in anything other than, this is my opinion. Most leadership books that are out there are written by sociologists or psychologists or business leaders or pardon me, not business leaders. They're people who have an opinion about leadership, but it's really not based on anything, any research, any scientific evidence. It's just, hey, this is what I did and it worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you too. And we're too busy to deal with stuff like that. In addition to too many options, too many opinions, it's often, I mean, it's always too impersonal. They end up with a book that wasn't written for them, wasn't written for their situation, or they go to a conference that's 1,000 people in a big room and someone spouting off leadership platitudes that they really can't apply to their business, their situation, their team. Maybe they walk away with 1 or 2 nuggets, but it's difficult to really extrapolate meaning and find application in their organization. The last challenge is they end up with one and done sort of training. They'll go to a conference, they come out feeling rah, 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 but they go back to the context of their job, and because it's so difficult to apply these things within their organization, it just doesn't happen. They read a book, they get hyped up, they can't apply it. They go to a conference, they get hyped up, they can't apply it. And so this results in leadership training that doesn't work. It's why that myth exists. They take a shotgun approach to leadership. They'll look at these 1,300 books and they'll go, well, gosh, this title appeals to me, or I like this author, and they, rather than having a systematic, logical approach to leadership development, they just sort of take a shotgun approach and hope something works. And maybe it's luck of the draw. Maybe they grab a great book and the content in that book is relevant to the organizational culture and their specific leadership needs. But more often than not, it's not. And so they end up with leadership concepts that aren't applicable to them or their organization or their team, and it produces no real results. Again, this is one of the reasons that people say leadership training doesn't work, and this myth. So how do you overcome this? And really, this is the meat of finding good leadership training. For good leadership training, for leadership training that works, it needs to be individualized. It needs to be based on the organizational context. It needs to be based on the individual, and it needs to be based on the team. And so that individualization is a key, one of the things that we like to do at Synoptis. We don't do a lot of group training. We focus on developing individuals because we know that works. Rather than coming in and talking to a group of 50 and getting people hyped up and not ending up with any sort of real consequences in the business. We like to work one-on-one with leaders who want to be better. Good leadership training needs to be based on business outcomes. it's really nice to say, you know, leaders just need to be more honest, or leaders need to be more transparent, or leaders need to, you've read all the books out there that are trait-based leadership coaching, and they're great platitudes. They sound really good, but they don't directly connect the dots between what the leadership training is teaching and the business-based outcomes. All those things on the earlier slides where we talked about better project success or higher revenue or more engagement. And so good leadership training needs tied to business-based outcomes. They need to be contextually relevant. And this has a lot to do with individualization. Some organizations need more transparency. They have more transparency. Some organizations have increased tolerance for change. But all that has to be assessed within the context of the business. And if you're looking at leadership training or expecting a book or a conference with 1,000 people to be contextually relevant for your business, you're kidding yourself. And lastly, good leadership training has to produce results long-term. Again, you can go to a conference, you can go to a 2-day offsite and come back and feel really excited. But the research shows that doesn't have any long-term results. Really, in order for there to be meaningful change in leadership behavior, it takes about 6 months. And so we like to focus on 6-month relationships with leaders, meeting weekly or bi-weekly over a 6-month period to help integrate the leadership changes into the authentic leader, so that the dollars that an organization spends on leadership results in these positive things that companies want to get out of their leadership. And so if you're looking for good leadership training, focus on those 4 things. Make sure it's individualized. Make sure that it's tied to the business-based outcomes that your organization needs. Make sure it's contextually relevant, considering not only the individual, but the team and the organizational culture. And make sure that it's not a one and done, where it's some 2 or 3 day offsite, or it's some large conference or a book that really doesn't understand your organization. Make sure that it's long enough and over a long enough period that it's going to allow you to incorporate the leadership changes that you want your organization to see. If you do these 4 things, if this is how you look for leadership training, you're going to end up with leadership training that does work, and you're going to bust this second myth. Look forward to seeing you at the next leadership myth. Thanks.